Hi, this is Victoria Swaney. You can find more about me and the mission of this YouTube page on the description. This isn't an official training. I'm not trained to train. I am just certified myself to teach, and I am sharing some of my experiences and what I've learned from the classroom, the time, and the environment, so that people can have this information more accessible to them. We can start a conversation, especially about this presentation in particular, which is, my personal experience of how things went and how I did it. But I'd be interested to hear in the comments about how other people do it and to see if it starts any kind of dialogue. So this is how I created a culture of presenting in my elementary environment. So one thing I wanted to say is that in a Montessori environment in particular, what presenting doesn't really entail is just standing up and talking in front of people, giving a speech in front of a group. I remember having a specific speech class in college. I opted not to take that and took theater instead to help with my projection and talking in front of people. But this isn't, in Montessori, we're not going to have a class that's all about giving speeches in a way that's isolated from other content. It's going to be interconnected. And it's not, let's give the children something to memorize and repeat in front of everyone without them really understanding or connecting to. So what is presenting in Montessori is, it's an opportunity to share discoveries, share excitement about work, share your victories, your things that you've created, and it's an opportunity to teach other people. And it's also part of just being part of a community. We learn together, we share together information we're finding. It's exciting to learn, and it's exciting to learn from your peers. So how I started my culture, when I first started, I only had 7 students to begin with, and we grew into, over 20, over a couple of years even, but over the course of a few years. So one thing to think about is that the way that children can learn to present is by starting small and just having a lot of opportunities to come together as a community. But not sort of in the middle of the work period. So let me explain. So we would have a couple of weekly meetings scheduled. Of course, at the beginning of the school year, and at certain times, there are going to be more meetings depending on the need you're adapting. So at the beginning of the school year, you need to come together a little bit more to establish the routines and to get started. But throughout the year, once everything was sort of settled, we had 2 weekly meetings that were in the morning at the end of the work cycle, included in the work cycle time, so before lunch. And then we also would meet every day for read aloud after lunch. So I'm going to describe each of these meetings how I did them. It doesn't mean it's the only way, of course, and I'd be really interested as I return to the classroom in the future to see, if some other ideas stand out and change what I end up doing. So one of the things that we did was news near and far. So that was sharing personal news and also taking some time to read or share some world news. I would sometimes read an article, a short article that was age appropriate for the children about something that's going on in the world or locally even. And then over time, I would hand it over to the children, so they would take turns reading a short article, and then people could ask questions about the article, and then share any other personal news. In elementary, the news was often that someone's birthday was coming up in a month or 2 or 3, and it was also often that someone's tooth was loose, or they'd lost a tooth that day. But there were other things, and it was a good opportunity for us to hear what was going on in people's lives, and sometimes it was a good opportunity also to get some insight about what the children are experiencing at home. So the other thing that we did as far as a meeting in the morning was a community meeting, and this one was at first, when I first started teaching, it was, we had a notebook where people would write sort of like grievances or problems they noticed or that they wanted to solve and find a solution to. So When I'm sweeping at the end of the day, people are always stepping in my dirt pile and kicking the dirt, and it's frustrating to me because I'm working hard on sweeping and my work's getting undone. So the children could basically come up with a solution, and they came up with, let's put a square of tape on the ground, like make a little area that's visible, and when I'm sweeping, I'll put the dirt there, and no one will step in that spot because they'll know it's there. That worked really well. That was a solution that they came up with and that they implemented. It did become sometimes a little bit overly negative, so we changed it eventually to be roses and thorns or something. There are different ways to call it, but gratitude and grievances. So we would sometimes discuss things that were issues that we wanted to solve, and we would also take the time to say things we were grateful for and excited about. And we would also sometimes we would just do grace and courtesy lessons that could look different. And a lot of them were from Montessori, with the Peace album, or adapted from that. And or we would act out situations that we were seeing play over and over in the classroom, my assistant and I, or students and I. And then we would invite discussion on that. So we would meet weekly for that, and then every day we would meet to hear stories aloud. So we're not getting into directly information about presenting yet, but just how we would come together as a group, because it's related. And so read aloud happened every day for us, either after recess or after the afternoon work period. At different times in my throughout my years, I tried it different ways to see if it would help them calm down for recess, or see if they needed to work first and then calm down at the end of the day, with various things. So anyway, with read aloud, we would read probably a little bit of nonfiction or a shorter book, and then a chapter of a longer book, and the children could do handwork while we were doing that, so they could knit, sew, draw, other crafts, or artistic things. There was a lot of origami and clay as well. Or they could just choose to listen. They didn't have to do any handwork, but it was an opportunity to work with the hands and listen. And we would also use that time to sing. So we would sing and then we would read. But any of these meetings, the reason I'm bringing them up and describing them now is just for the opportunity to understand at the beginning or end of any of these meetings, we could make room for presentations. So, because they're appropriate to any of these things. So they could present at the beginning, they could present at the end. We wouldn't just really do it on a whim usually, because we wanted to make sure people weren't starving and impatient before lunch, or that we shortened read aloud in order to make time for it. So we did ask the children to tell us in advance that they were interested in presenting, and then we would make the time for it. So one of the important things that I wanted to touch on is that we invited presentations. We didn't usually require them. I'm trying to think if there's any time I did require them. As children got older, I might more sort of set it as an expectation without it being necessarily a requirement. It really depends on the specific child. But basically the idea is that in general, we don't really say everyone has to present or you have to present this, but a key phrase I put on here is that I noticed you worked hard on that. So as we created the culture of we come together and we talk regularly, we also created opportunities for that. Starting with, I noticed you worked really hard on that. I noticed you're proud of that. Would you like to share it with the group? I bet, the class would like to learn about this too. This is so interesting what you found out about this animal. Or I really think that they would love to see your diorama and know what you learned about the planets or whatever. So whatever topic it is. But this also gave variety to the presentations. But it's the way that it started out. So to begin it, you have to get somebody who's excited to present and willing to speak to the class. And then other children see that and they get excited to share as well. So by the end, sometimes I had to say, I'm sorry, we have too many presentations today. Let's get into some of them tomorrow, because I know that my students can only sit still and listen to so much at once in a day. And so I would be scheduling them out to the end of the week, because the enthusiasm does spread and children are excited to share with each other. So as far as readiness and what we're sort of hoping and expecting from each age group-ish or child, is that we're starting by just trying to first get them feeling confident and joyful about sharing. And so we're not really nitpicking about the details too much, as long as they're not saying misinformation. We did have eventually to specify that if you do not know the answer to a question, you should not guess in front of the whole class, but you should tell the group that you did not research that, or you did not come across that in your research, and invite them to figure it out as well, to continue the research, but not to just make a claim without any backing. So, but the main point for younger children, especially probably your first years, probably your new students, is just that you want them to just feel comfortable and happy sharing. So, because confident people who are feeling happy about sharing are going to have an easier time. If they're scared, if they're nervous, if they're not really sure about what they're saying, that's going to be, an unpleasant experience, and it would be for anyone. So as they get a little bit older, or just even some 6 and 7-year-olds who are feeling confident and joyful and they love sharing, you can start to push them in little ways. So as they're asking to present, you can help them organize what they're saying, let them practice to you or your assistant or another child who has done presentations and maybe knows what to look for. Because other children especially will know, well, I can't really hear you. Could you speak up, or could you not put the poster in front of your face? But it helps to first have teachers helping, and then that can trickle down from older students to younger students later. But so we basically are going to slowly, each time they present, give them a few tips, let them try one more time. But we don't want to kill their confidence and their joy by, finding everything that could be better, because something can always be better. And it's, we want them to feel that they can improve something incrementally. They can make the improvement, and then they can present, and they can feel good about it without it being perfect. So we can give them a few transitional phrases. What if you said, first and then and next? Or what if you started with, making sure they have a sort of a topic sentence, I'm presenting about this topic, before diving right in. So there are all these, of course, ways to improve presentations, but you don't need to fix them all at once. You can basically feel out the child. What are they ready for? How much are they ready for? And give them a little bit here and there, and pick what's the biggest issue. Start there, let them work on it, and then the next time you can give them a little bit more. And if you ideally have 3 to 6 years with the child, then you can get them over that amount of time and that many presentations, getting them really comfortable, knowing a lot of different aspects of public speaking, including being organized, being clear, using transitional phrases, topic sentences, and so on. So there isn't an exact age range, so you just, like I said, increase the standards as they're ready at their pace. Okay. So this method, I believe, aligns with Montessori in the fact that they were free to choose their topics, and they were free to choose whether they wanted to present or not. But if they were going to take people's time and present to the class, then they needed to be respectful of that, of the people are listening to them, by preparing, being clear, not hiding behind something and mumbling for a few minutes, trying to speak loudly, clearly, and to just be correct, right? So fact checking. So there's the balance of the freedom with the responsibility aspect. And then it's also aligned in terms of the cosmic education theory, which I'll do another presentation on. But the idea that everything is interconnected. And so as children are researching on different topics, they find connections between things, and they are seeing what other people are learning and connecting to that, and it's broadening their horizons. And then it's also aligned because it's respecting the development of the child. They are naturally social and gregarious in this second plane, the elementary ages 6 to 12. They want to share and they want it to be meaningful. They want their work to be meaningful, as we all do over time, right? So we don't really want to do sort of arbitrary work that we can't understand the meaning behind. So communicating with your peers is something that is inherently useful and enjoyable, and especially if you go on to a field like the sciences where you need to report or share research, or public relations, public services, you're going to use these skills, and so they're going to come in handy. And it's great if they can shed sort of the fear and dread that can sometimes come along with public speaking. I haven't double checked this recently, but that people tend to say that public speaking is one of their biggest fears after death. So we want to do our best to mitigate that, because we're all sharing this world together and trying to make it a better place together, and we're all learning together, and so communicating is key. So the last thing is just that I wanted to reflect on all of this as a whole, and just encourage you to give it a try and to communicate with me about what you do in your classroom to get people presenting. But the idea is that first you have a culture where people come together and communicate about even little things. Even my loose tooth is wiggly and it fell out, or is about to fall out. And here's my work. I worked really hard on this. What do you think of it? And that grows and grows and grows. So you're creating opportunities for children to share in an organic way in the classroom. And it's so important. And it's creating a foundation for them to share information for the rest of their life. So let me know what you think. And that's it. Thank you so much for your time.